Alrighty, it is that time again, everybody. We are back. Steve here, the retired hobby tech guy. And today we're going to be talking about some cool stuff, as we can see down here. Setting your pressure advance on your K2 Plus. Thank you, Jonathan, for the question. So we're going to address that and show it on the video. We're going to talk about a free palette knife for those hobby enthusiasts. And as you can see over there, you're painting some acrylic stuff. A hobby knife comes in handy. And then we're going to talk about the free link for the download for this awesome palette knife that I made in Tinkercad. And then we're going to talk about the Bambu Labs H2S and the P2S and look at the specs of those two machines and kind of be tempted to maybe buy another printer. George pops up and says, "Howdy, good morning, sir." At least it's morning here in Korea. It's probably evening where you're at. But good to see you again, George. We're going to jump right into this. And the first question that I ended up having was a guy named Jonathan asking about how do I set the pressure advance on the K2 Plus. And brand new users got his K2 Plus using the stock settings, which I've been doing myself, and it seems to work out really well. But I wanted to up it to the next level, and setting the pressure advance, there's a little bit of a process that we're going to go through, and we'll look at that process on Creality Print. And then what we'll end up doing is we'll show you how to update the pressure advance in your profile and how we can save it so you can reference that for the different materials or the different layer heights and or for your filament. And it's kind of it's a little bit of a process, but once I show you how to do it, you'll be like, oh, that's all there is. So we're going to dive into that. And again, like I said, the palette knife will show you that, the download link, and then the P2S or the P2S and H2S, all those S's. We're going to be talking about some S's from Bambu. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the desktop, and this is Creality Print. And normally what we end up seeing here is we've got our build area that we can put stuff on, and over the top we've got some things that we can manipulate if we put a model up there. And then over in this top right, what we have is our filament. And if you want to to make sure that your machine is the proper machine, we'll go over here to the top left. We'll click that, and we have the choice of machines. So you need to make sure that you pick the best machine or the machine that you have, which if you only have one machine, then that's the best machine. And then the default should be good to go. And we can go ahead and click that, like that double arrow to the left. We'll click that, and there we go. So now when we go over here to the top right and we talk about our filament, these are the filaments that are loaded up in my CFS at this time. And if we go over here, we can see this is spot 1, 2, 3, and 4, corresponds to the spots on the CFS, which goes from left to right. So if we click down here, notice that there's a little asterisk, and it says Hyper PLA, and there it is. And if we click the down arrow, we can see that we've got a bunch of system presets. So we've got Creality ABS, PETG, PLA, and then if we go down here, we got Hyper PLA CF. We've got some different settings, and we have Hyper PLA. That's the one that we have set for mine using the Creality Print Hyper PLA, and also use the same profile for the Polymaker PLA, the matte black and the matte white that I've been printing out recently. So what it comes down to is we can close that out, and if we continue on over to the right, we see this little pencil. And if we hit that pencil, this brings up a window that gives us a bunch of different settings that we can play with. Now, you probably want to be careful. Don't change settings that you don't know what they do, because that will mess up the profile for your filament, which will most likely mess up your print. But what we can do is we look at the filament. It's PLA, it's Creality. You can do some different things here. Again, these are all the stock settings. And when we get down here to pressure advance, it says 0.04. That's what we're going to be playing with a little bit. And we'll be able to change that if we hit enable pressure advance. So we're just going to go ahead and we'll close this out. We're not going to make any changes because we have to do the pressure advance test first. So if you go up to the very top and we go up to, I don't know if we can see it on you guys's. Yeah, there it is. So we can go up here, we go to calibration, and we can go to pressure advance. Now, normally what you would want to do is you'd want to do a temperature tower, you would want to do the flow rate test, which is pass 1 and 2, and then you would do your pressure advance. But since the question is basically, how do I do the pressure advance? That's what we're going to do here. So we go to the pressure advance, we're going to go ahead and click that, and this window pops up. We got a direct drive extruder, and you have their choices of PA tower, PA line, or PA pattern. Now you could go through and do each one of these, but what I've found so far is the PA pattern seems to have some really good results, so we're just going to start with that. We're going to set these, the start PA is going to be 0, so the pressure advance is going to be 0. It's going to end in 0.08, step is going to be 0.005, and the plate temperature is going to be 50 Celsius. Those are the default settings, and for the most part, just set it and forget it. So we're just going to go ahead and click OK, and we don't have to worry about that. We're just going to go through here, and if we zoom in, we see this little computer thing, and it's like, well, what's going on? And I think this is part of the problem, because people are like, I don't know what to do. This doesn't look right. You just need to go through, and here's another thing you need to look at. To choose the filament that you want to do the test on. So we go back over here to the top right, we hit those little arrows, it pops up, and then we can choose the filament that we want to use. So let's say we wanted to use blue. Notice how that little piece turns blue, and then, you know, or we could put it back to red. That's what I end up using. So you can change the filament. And I think there's some, I wish there was a more user-friendly way. Matter of fact, on that PA menu where you can set and has all the defaults, if they had an option where you could choose that filament right at that time, that would be great. So I think there's a little bit of confusion on that. So now that we have this, we go down here to the bottom where it says slice plate, and with this, here's something else that we need to look at. On this layer height, we can set the layer height for this object, and we can go through and we could change that layer height if we wanted. We're just going to leave it at the stock 0.2, and we're going to go ahead and slice the plate. So now what pops up is this right here, which is, and we're going to rotate this around, this is our pressure advance. And so what this is going to end up doing is creating a pattern with some corners at various different pressure advance levels, so starting with 0 and then all the way to 0.08, and we'll have like 0.01, then 0.015, and then 0.02, and so on. So there's a half step in between each of those. So that's, you know, we can see that there. That would be 0, this would be 0.05, 0.01, and so on and so forth. So each corresponding line, if there's a space in there, that's the halfway mark. So what we end up doing is we will do this for our filament, and then we just go ahead and send this to the printer. It's not going to take too long. This comes out to 5 minutes and 21 seconds. It's like 3 cents worth of filament. Whoop-de-doo. It's not a lot. So with that being said, what we're going to end up doing is taking a look. We printed that out, and once we print that out, we need to do some evaluation of the print. And so I've got some pictures of that, and here we are. And here is the model. And I think what I will do, we can see the model, and we've got all the different lines. We've got all of the different numbers on there. Now we need to pick which one that we want. And so let me move this a little bit like so. So with that, what we're looking for is we're looking for a corner that doesn't have like a bubble on it, and we're looking for a corner that doesn't have any spaces within the filament lines itself on that corner, because either you're getting, not the right setting. And with that being said, usually the default on chirality print, at least for hyper PLA, is 0.04. So we've got that there. But if we take a look at this, and what we can end up doing is zooming in here, and you can see how, like, that one is 0, and notice how it's got kind of a bubble on there. We got the first one at the very top, the second, the third. It's kind of it's not really a squared off corner so much. And as we continue on, we end up, like going down to the bottom here, you can see like at the 0.08 at the very bottom, that's a jacked up corner. So 0.08, 0.075, 0. All of those you go through. And basically what you want to end up doing is looking for the one that has kind of like the best looking corner that doesn't have like a bulb on the end, isn't flared out. And that's going to be the one that you're going to look for. So with that, we've got another picture here. And we can see that it's set at 0.4. And oops, let's take that down a little bit. So we can see the 0.4 is the default. We still need to go down a little bit more. There it is. So if we follow the 0.04 and follow that line down to the corner, and we're still not there. There we go. No, 0.04 is this one right there. Yeah, so we've got that down at the very bottom. And we can see that that is kind of it's a little bit of a mess. We've got some holes in there, not 100% holes, but if we go to the one up above it, it looks pretty good. And then if we go to the one above that, that might actually be the one, like a 0.03. So you're going to have to, look at your filament for the size that you need. And so you're going to do this filament test, this pressure advance test, for your specific filament at the layer height that you're going to be using. So again, you've got different profiles within Creality Print at like 0.08, 0.06. You've got standard, you've got high quality, you've got 0.02, or 0.2 layer height or whatever. So you would have to do a pressure advance test for each one of those. So, and this can vary. And I want to say it's almost like there are some variances depending on the color of the filament as well. So take that into consideration. You'll have to do your own tests. I've seen some things. I don't know if it's just a mechanical thing with the K2 Plus, but I've kind of noticed some very slight differences when it comes to doing pressure advance tests with hyper PLA, but different colors. So if you're really concerned about getting the most bang for your buck with the K2 Plus and your pressure advance, definitely, do a pressure advance test along with the other calibration tests for your filament and specific filament color. So yeah, we've got that going on. Now here we want to talk about going back to and setting the new pressure advance setting for that profile. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to go back and we're going to do this, and we're back here. So now if we go up here, because this was printed in red, so we're going to go up here to the Hyper PLA, and we're going to go over here to the pencil. So we'll click the pencil and we get that window that we had again, and the pressure advance. We're going to enable that, and let's say that the one of 0.03 is the pressure advance that we want. And then we could come down to the bottom and we could click Save As. So this is important because a lot of new users will save this and they'll just save it as the exact same as the stock setting name, and you lose your stock settings. So when you click Save As, you got Hyper PLA, Creality K2 Plus, and it says Copy 1. What I would end up doing is just put, to save some room, is just put K2 Plus 0.04 nozzle, and then we'll take this out and we'll put PA 0.03. And you could even just put, take out that there, because you know it's a K2 plus and you know it's Creality. So this will show up in your list of saved user presets. So if we notice on this top left-hand side, we have user presets and we have system presets. What I found is some people have contacted me and saying, hey, my prints are coming out, it's all jacked up. And what they ended up doing is the title is too long, and so they can't tell the difference between the user preset or the stock one, or they just rename it, they take the copy off, whatever. It's a little bit confusing. But I found that making a specific change in the name so it's easily recognizable will be under user presets anyway, and you can see what that setting is for the pressure advance or whatever. And again, you go through and do a test print. You know, you're going to want to do your temperature tower, you're going to do all the other ones, and then do a setting for each one of those, and then do a final test with all the settings, and then you could say fully calibrated or something like that in your title. So now we can set this for the user preset that we can use at a later time, or we can set this here where it says use a preset inside project. So this could be just for this individual project, and that might be important as well. So that could help you kind of compartmentalize the things that you're doing and still maintain stock settings. But when you have this special project that you've done, you've tested, you need really, specific high quality results, you could save it just for this project. So we're just going to save it as a user preset. And there on that top right, we can see that we have the Hyper PLA K2 Plus nozzle PA 0.03. So we have that as an option. So we can go ahead and we can close that. And when we come back here, let's say we're going to be using this red Hyper PLA. We did all our settings, and now that is the one that is selected. But let's say if I want to go back to a system preset, we'll click this down arrow, and now we have these down here. You still have your system presets, like your Hyper PLA. You could do that, and with a fresh start, use that preset and then make the appropriate changes. So yeah, you've got some different things, and doing different tests and stuff like that, you can again make a custom profile with the temperature tower, with the flow rate, the pressure advance, retraction test, tolerance test, max flow, VFAs, speed calibration, you could do crazy. You could do some crazy stuff and go through all of those tests, and you could do the ultimate profile. So yeah, that's what we got going on there. So hopefully, Jonathan, I'll send you this email because he sent me an email, and I'll respond with the link. So hopefully this will end up answering that question about how do you do the pressure advance test in Creality Print. How do you set it? How do you save it? And how do you most important thing is how do you interpret the test that you just did? So yeah. So that's what we got going on. So that's the first thing. And again, some other slicers like Orca Slicer, they do a little bit better and to make it more user friendly. And I wish that some companies would really, really have a Barney basic, here's how to calibrate for dummies setting. And so, and come up and say, well, when you do your pressure advance, how do you read it? Because if we go back to that, if we go back to Creality Print, and let's say we go back, and we slice the it doesn't say how to do the calibration. It just comes up with pressure advance, and it doesn't have like a link. It doesn't have something that will populate to a YouTube page to where you could get some instruction on how to do it. Now you can go through and you can search the interwebs for a link, and it'll explain kind of that stuff. But it would be really nice if it had like a link on this page here where you're doing your calibration for an explanation, so that way you don't have to go and it's like how to PA advance and have the link for a YouTube video. I think that would be really helpful. So yeah, that's what we end up having there. But yeah, it'll get there. It'll get there. Eventually, we won't even need um, pressure advance tests, as we'll see when we take a look at the Bambu. That is going to be interesting because, yeah, they're getting to the point of where you won't even need to do pressure advance tests, and that's why I'm kind of excited about the Bambu H2S and the P2S, which is the renovation or the renewed P1S, and it's got some great improvements. And yeah, it is very tempting. But before we get into that, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to close this out and we're going to talk about the palette knife. Now, for those of you who know, you've seen some videos of me where I paint miniatures. I'm doing a cosplay helmet, and I've done some bigger ones. I've finished this one up here, and that turned out really good. With that, I paint these normally with two types of paints. One is going to be spray paint. The other is going to be acrylic paints, which I've got a bunch over there. And some of them you need to mix them up with either a medium or a water to thin them out. Some of them, like the Arteco paints, are just really, really thick. So when you add water, it's kind of thick and pasty, and you'll need a palette knife. I didn't know what a palette knife was until somebody recommended it, and I was like, oh, a palette knife. So I went on Amazon, a little bit too expensive for me. I mean, you can go that route. It's not saying it's a bad thing. You can get one, you can get a set of palette knives. I just need something small that feels good in my hand, and I can do my little, thinning out of the paint. It's important that it feels good in your hand. That's all I'm going to say. Take it for what it's worth. So what we'll end up doing is let me show you what I found first. I did a search online for palette knives, and basically it kind of looks like a trowel, kind of a long drawn out masonry trowel. It's just kind of shrunk down, and what you end up doing is you have your paint. Say I put some paint there, and then I would just be able to mush it back and forth, and that's an entirely viable this is an entirely viable tool. I mean, the bottom piece on that you can see is pretty nice. The back side of that is a little funky, but it's just I can't remember how many cents this was to print this out, but it's next to nothing. And it's got some flex in it and stuff like that. I think this would work, but I wanted something a little bit more high class. So we're going to throw that away. And what I ended up doing is going into Tinkercad. And in Tinkercad, what I ended up doing is creating my own, where is it? Creating my own palette knife because I wanted something a little bit more high end. I don't know. And it gives me another chance to play with Tinkercad. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to go to Tinkercad, which is popping up right now. And there is the first model, which is this one right here. Now I downloaded that. It was either Printables or Quality Print. I can't remember the user, but again, it was just kind of I wasn't too impressed with it. It just seemed like too simplistic, and I wanted something. I mean, it'll work. It'll absolutely work. But I wanted to do something and practice my Tinkercad skills. So what I ended up doing is making this right here. And this is my brush here, or my knife, my palette knife. And what we ended up doing is just kind of doing shapes and colors. And if we kind of go through here, we can see what I ended up doing, as far as, let's just take everything apart. And basically I had a cylinder, I had two spheres, I had another cylinder, I had a half circle, a half sphere, and then I ended up, this piece was, I can't remember what that was. Oh, it was the triangle. That's what it was, or the roof. And then I kind of manipulated and drug it out in some different things, and then I ended up kind of a little bit of rounding it off for that front end. So the height of that is 3 millimeters. So when we take a look at this, let's just go back here, Go back to the main screen, and there we end up seeing it. So it's a pretty decent amount of material on that. It's got a nice handle, and it printed out fairly well. We got a little bit of ugliness on the other side, and we did print this with supports. So what we ended up doing with that is making this in Tinkercad, exported it, threw it into Creality Print. We printed it out, and once I found out that this was what I wanted, and it's a real nice knife, because the other one, you couldn't get the downward pressure, and I think I like, unless you it was just this is ergonomically and infinitely better than the other one. So I kind of liked it that you could put pressure on here, and then print it out, test it out. I did a little bit of sanding around the edges on there, but boom, Bob's your uncle, as people in Australia or England would say, and we're good to go. So after I got a successful print with that, played with it, I was like, I'm happy. And then what I ended up doing is putting it onto, excuse me, onto my Creality Cloud. And there it is. And we've got a number of other models on there. All of this stuff is free, by the way. So the very first one I ended up doing is I did some airbrush stuff, some paint rack holders. Again, all this stuff for free. The cosplay mask helmet screen. I got a video for that. Pretty much videos on most of this stuff. Teleprompter, shelving for different things and parts. So this acrylic paint knife set is the new one. So it goes through and you can see all the different things there and some of the different settings. And yeah, it turned out being a really good print. So yeah, there it is, the palette knife. And so what I'll end up doing is I'll copy this link and we will throw this into the comments. So if you want that free palette knife, it is in the comments section down below. So with that being said, yeah, feel free, if you're into that or any of the other stuff on my Creality Cloud page, the Buried Life, that you can see right up there, and you can download all that stuff for free. With that being said, since I've offered all of that stuff for free, please like and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate that if you could do that, because that would help with the algorithm. It's kind of one of my hobbies since I'm retired, and yeah, I like the conversations that we have doing live streams and videos and so on and so forth. And then this is also another way where I can learn to do Tinkercad, and I can make stuff, and boom. It's just a fun way to kind of give back. And as I get better, hopefully I'll get into like Fusion 360 or something similar. George pops up and says, what is the top Z height I normally use? With that is very good, because the top Z height is, I think it's 0.2 is the top Z distance, and that's the distance between your model and the support. There's a little bit of distance in between there, so you can get the support to attach but not fully be welded on. And so you got to have a little bit of distance between the model and the support. And if it's set from one extreme to the other, either it's not going to support the model or it's going to support the model, but it's really going to be fused on there. It's going to leave some heavy marks. With that, I also have a link for, imagine this, a pressure, or not a pressure advance, but the top Z distance. And what we can end up doing is, where is it? Boom, there we go. And we got a couple of different videos, and it's this one here. And I've got another one, advanced supports using PET-G as interface and top Z distances. So if you go to the page there, when we talk about those things, and we'll put in that, and so you can take a look at those videos. But this one, how to get the best top Z distance, that's a real good video, and it actually comes from Uncle Jesse. Has some models on printables that you can download, and you can do some tests with different top Z distances to find the best one for you and your filament that you're going to be using. So that's a real good question, George. So yeah, you can end up checking those out, and you could even go, like I said, the test results of using the PETG or PETG interface layer, because those two things don't like each other. They don't stick to each other real well. So that might be something if you really want to get some support, but you want to try to get a clean support and underside on that overhang is going to look really nice. I'm going to revisit that a little bit later on. But yeah, it's yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Just little tips and tricks that I've found from other people. I don't come up with this stuff. Okay, there's nothing new under the sun, so that is a truthful saying. It's already there. All the information, probably about 99.9% of the information, is from other people who have been more experienced, and I just, copy and paste and pass it along as well. So they try to help me lessen my learning curve. I pass it along to try to help other people and lessen their learning curve and do what we want to do, which is printing out cool stuff. So yeah, we've got that right there. So anyway, you can check the link for the Creality Cloud on that palette knife. You can download, that's a free, along with all those other things. The other thing we're going to take a look at is Creality, not Creality because we have the K2 Plus, but I'm thinking about getting a different printer. And I'm very tempted about Bambu. Now, let me take a little swig here because I got to prime the pump. And when I do that, you can hit like on the video. Today's latte is a dark roast, locally roasted beans here in Korea, which is pretty nice. But I ended up having a white chocolate syrup added to it with a little bit of sweetener, and it is nice. I'm liking it. I got to give a like to the video just because the latte turned out so well. Got it down. I got one more setting. I would almost say it's great, but it's good. It's a good espresso. It's a good latte, but I need to adjust the grind size a little bit more, and we should be good to go. So let's get back to Bambu. Bambu has come out with their H2S, which is really nice. But I'm considering on getting a second printer, so do I spend a bunch of money or do I spend a little bit less money? And what does Bambu have to offer? So we're going to take a look at that. And here, boom, we've got Bambu Labs. And if we're looking, this is the new Bambu Labs P2S. And the P2S is pretty good. What we end up seeing is basically it's like the P1S, but they did a bunch of improvements. Now, initially, when it first got rumored that they were doing this, people were thought, they're probably just going to throw in, some real small improvements, and it's not really going to be, they're trying to sell their old stock because they couldn't get it off the shelves, and so they'll have minimal improvements. No. This P2S is looking really good. And remember how we set the pressure advance in Creality Print? This thing over here might change your mind because, like I said, we might not need to do PA testing anymore, and Bambu Labs I think they're on the verge of that. Some product features, again, a 5-inch touch screen, which is a little bit bigger than the regular stock one. Auto flow dynamics calibration, that's where that's going to come into air cooling, multicolor printing. It uses the AMS2, which is a dryer printer, or not dryer multi-material system, the automatic material system. So you can dry your filament and print, which is awesome. I think everybody should do that. Active venting, filament drying. The build volume is 256 cubed, which if we look at Freedom units, 256 is about 10 inches. Just a hair over 10 inches. So, it's about like that. Yep, it's about 10 inches. And that's a respectable build plate area. And so, unless you're doing something that requires a huge build area, And most files for like cosplay and other things were made around the Bambu build plate size, the 256 cube. So really, if you're looking for a second printer that has upped the game, the P2S might be the one you want to look at. And we're going to take a look at some of the things here. Redefined, yeah, we get that. Let's see, what do we end up with? They got some people that said, yeah, it's, you know, the best, next best thing, the sliced bread. Other, you know, speed of use, people are kind of giving it some thumbs up. And let's take a look here. 5-inch touchscreen, which came and is the same touchscreen as the H2S. Cold air cooling, this is kind of a new thing where we can see that the air comes in through the bottom. There's the fan and it goes in there. So that is pretty good for PLA. So do you need to open the door or the top to print PLA anymore? They're getting kind of past that. Engineering filament ready because it does have a heated chamber and it does have a carbon fiber, not carbon fiber, but a carbon filter to get rid of those VOCs. Another great thing that it ends up having is the quick swap nozzle. Again, no more Allen keys. Just flip the little clip off. You can pull out the hot end, put in another one, do the clip, and you're good to go. All machines should have that. And the K2 Plus should have that as well. Unfortunately, it doesn't. You still got to do the Allen keys and remove. So eventually, I'm hoping Creality and other companies will get and have a quick swap nozzle, which is really nice. PMSM server extruder motor, which gives a little bit better precision and accuracy. Better camera, so it is, instead of like a 720, I think it's actually a 1080p camera with 30 frames per second instead of the old one that had, if I'm not mistaken, like 5 frames per second, which looked at really janky. Auto flow dynamic calibration, that's what we're talking about. That is really good. Active venting filament drying system, that is awesome. Especially for somebody like me in Korea where there's a lot of humidity during the summer, being able to dry and print, that's an important thing because the level of moisture within your filament, that can be something that can cause the difference between a great print and like, you know, or even a ruined print if you're looking for precision and accuracy and high quality. So yeah, they've got the cool screen on there. 70% more extrusion force and real-time error detection with their sensor and motor, which is pretty nice. Again, that's going to be nice. Print smooth at every corner, always. Active flow rate compensation, eddy current pressure sensor. So, yeah, it uses a high-resolution, high-frequency eddy current sensor to calibrate flow dynamics. Intelligent algorithms actively adjust the flow rate based on these readings, provide precise, consistent extrusion across every layer and corner. So that pressure advance thing that we just did with Creality K2 Plus, yeah, Bambu already kind of went over that. So that's why I'm saying it's tempting. And there we can see the difference when it's on or off. And of course, it's going to be the most exaggerated, but I have seen some prints like we see on this right-hand side. And yeah, that's because your flow rate or your pressure advance is not set right. Obviously, to get this type of result, you would have to exaggerate or change the setting to a setting that you would never use to get the bad results that we see there. But again, it's just kind of highlight on how well you know, they're making this machine user friendly by making it so you don't have to do as many tests. Perfect overhand, no matter the filament or temperature. And again, cold air intake, it has a cooling mode. We also, those little things down there are pretty good. So again, forcing air, and that's great for PLA, so you don't have to open the top or anything. And yeah, it's got some real good stuff. 50 Celsius chamber for engineering grade filaments, heat preservation, has a carbon filter to filter out those VOCs, and error detection. in case there's something on the build plate or you have a failed print. It can also check and do spaghetti. It also checks for nozzle clumping. So again, that is a big improvement. And then it also has a purge chute jam as well. So some machines don't have this, but apparently they're saying that theirs is better than everybody else's, which could be, But again, all of these things are advancements upon the prior P1S, and now it's the P2S, and that's some pretty good advancements on here. 30-second nozzle swap, one-clip design. Again, that is so awesome. No lag, live view, and high-quality time lapses. They actually improved the LED lighting within their systems. And kind of like with Creality, they had that little 6-inch, light. And it's like, seriously, if you're going to offer a high-end machine, you need to have that area lit up. So Bambu actually took this into consideration, and they upgraded the camera. So again, you can see the difference between the P1S and the P2S. Again, this one over here is, I think, 5 frames per second. I think this one is 24 or 30 frames per second. So, yeah. Hardened steel nozzle comes stock. So that's kind of a good thing. It used to be back in the day, you had like brass nozzles for PLA, and then you had to pay extra or additional funds for hardened steel nozzles. Bambu is saying now, no, just hardened steel all the way and you're good to go, regardless of what you print. Multi-color printing and filament drying all in one box with the AMS2, which is nice. Again, that is an awesome feature to have. Electromagnetic air vents, and you can see the difference between moist and drying your filaments, and especially some esoteric filaments, that's even more important. For the race car steering wheel, you can print all this stuff out. The PMSM feeding motor accelerates filament feeding by 60%, saving an average of 10 minutes for every 100 filament changes. So again, some more advancements of making printing quicker, faster, easier, more effective, higher quality than what it was before. And then, of course, they're pumping their Maker World that has a bunch of models, which I've printed a bunch of stuff off of theirs. I have a profile on Maker World. I don't post anything there, but going through and printing stuff for me, personal use stuff, models and whatever, it's really set up nice. Perfection by detail, 2-in-1 buffer, flat base, so you can clean everything off. And then when we get into the specifications, again, you can go through there, and the weighs 14.9 kilos, so about 15 kilos basically. Hardened steel, nozzle diameter included is 0.4, but they also have 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8. Filament cutter is built in filament, we see that, and we can expand this out, and let's see. You can have, what else do we got here? Extruder motor, flexible steel plate, textured PEI plate, which is included. Supported plates are textured PEI, smooth PEI, and cool plate super tack. So you can use some of the plates of the previous versions, which is nice. So if you have that, we're looking at max speed tool head of 600 millimeters per second, which seems to be standard nowadays. Most of them will go up to that high 600 millimeters per second. That is the top speed. But honestly, your normal daily driving speed is going to be around 250 to 300. So take that into consideration. Acceleration is 20,000, which seems to be like the industry standard now. Anything less than that. But again, that's the top speed. Your daily driver speed for acceleration is probably not going to be 20,000. But it does, if your top speed is 20,000 and you use even half of that, and that is normal, and if you have other machines that have max acceleration of like 10,000, their normal daily driving acceleration is going to be a little bit less. And so there's going to be some time savings when you have higher acceleration in your daily driving stuff. So yeah, you got to take it with a grain of salt. Carbon activated filter. We've got that, VOC filtration, closed loop motors, all that fans, blah, blah, blah. Camera is a 1920 by 1080, so it is a 1080 and it's 30 frames per second. So that's good, that's good. Door sensor, so if you open the door, the screen will pop on, and I don't know if it stops the print or not. That's kind of interesting. Still got the filament runout sensor, tangle sensor, filament odometry, supported with AMS. This is really good because have you ever gone through and wanted to do a print, but you were like, okay, I know my material system will change from one spool to another if this one runs out, but sometimes you'll see some differences. You can actually see on the print and the layer lines of where that happened, and you're like, but with the filament odometer, basically, their algorithm and computer stuff, it configures the spool and the layers and wherever it's at to give you a more accurate reading of how much filament you got left so that you can make those important decisions. That's got to be an industry standard. Eventually, that is going to be an industry standard. Power loss recovery voltage 110, 220. So for me here in Korea, that would work. PLA steady state power, touchscreen storage, 8 gig. Okay, that's good. They have their mobile app, all of that. Ethernet is not available. Everything is dual band Wi-Fi. No network kill switch, removable network module, none of that. Operating system, Wi-Fi protocol, blah, blah, blah. 2.4, 5 gig, 3, 4, half band, 2.4, yeah. So there's a lot of good information that you can find on this P2S, and that's what when we'll get back to the picture here, because you're probably wondering. This is what comes into the box. You get the P2S, the AMS tube combo, the filament buffer, you get a build plate, the box spool holder, which is a side spool holder, which is really nice. And yeah, the P2S looks really, really good. So, and notice there's no price on here. It's going to be, I think just with it's supposed to be rumored around $700 for the US. It hasn't come out. I think in England, the UK, and stuff like that, it's like 749 pounds or whatever that comes out to be. But that is very, very tempting. That is very, very tempting. George pops up and ends up saying, come on, George, there you go. It is nice. I was reading that the P1S had some firmware issues at first. I wonder if this one will have similar. Considering all the advancements, that's a good question. I think every new or renewed system that comes out, kind of like with the P2S, you're going to have some firmware upgrades. There's going to be some little hiccups in the anytime a machine is released, whether it's new or renewed, or a redone version like the P2S, you're going to have that. But they've worked out the kinks on the P1S to the point of where people are still buying them and everything is good to go. Kind of reminiscent of when I got the K2 Plus, there were some issues. They worked their tails off. They got the firmware upgrades in over a series over time. It's a great printer, and it just gets better and better over time. So, but I think Bambu is at a place now where they have all the information from the P1S, that with the release of the P2S and of course the H2D and the H2S, which we'll take a look at, they're minimizing those problems. And so while you might have some, I think it'll be very minimal compared to like when Bambu first came on the market. So with there is a series of firmware upgrades, obvious problems and things like that, but it was far better than what any other company had done. So again, this is minimizing all of that and making it so much easier for people to buy it, plug it in, and start printing and have minimal tests or calibration. It's just getting to the point of where it's like a normal appliance, like a microwave, a TV. You plug it in, boom. 5 minutes later, you're printing. 10 minutes later you're printing. It's getting to that place, and it's reliable. And the stock profiles and all that. Again, I'm really, really impressed with the P2S. With that said, I still have a problem with Bambu. Back in the day when they said, we're going to end up doing this thing with we're going to transmit information, and the information is, it's not going to include, the log files that went from your machine via the cloud or the internet and went up to their servers in the sky. And they were like, oh no, we would never get that information or this information. No. And then Grant from 3D Musketeers and some of his pals were able to crack into the log files, and Bambu lied their ass off. So, that left a very bad taste in my mouth. And then they did their closed system. They ended up saying, well, we're concerned about your security. We really are, So, and here's the analogy that I had, is rain. Rain is bad. And so if you go out in the rain, you're going to need protection, and that protection is normally an umbrella. So there's two ways that you can protect yourself. You can either have your own umbrella, or you can have somebody else's umbrella. And the thing is that Bambu tried to say, well, we have millions and millions of unauthorized hits on our servers, and we want to protect you from any rogue people going through that can hack into your machine and just print something at 2 o'clock in the morning, unbeknownst to you. Apparently that was the excuse that they said of making this closed system and having to go through their thing. The problem is there's no proof of that. I've searched Reddit, I've searched tons of things. I haven't found anybody where they, they're sleeping and they're dreaming of I Dream a Genie or whatever it is, and then they wake up because they hear a sound in the house, and it ends up the printer is printing a million benchies while they slept because somebody hacked into their system and made their printer start printing stuff. Never happened. Not one recorded instance. But yet Bambu says, because we got a million unauthorized hits on our servers, we're going to make it so that you have to do this, and you have to have our system, and you have to, which opens up, again, the problem with the log files, the pictures, the videos, everything that you print can be seen by Creality. Or not Creality. Well, probably Creality too. We'll get to that in a little bit. But that put a bad taste in everybody's mouth because, one, you lied outright, and then you tried to gaslight people about your log files, and then you came back and you said, well, now we're going to require that everybody do this online and have this thing for your safety and security. Usually when anybody, a government or a company says it's for your safety and security, red flags just pop up everywhere. That's all I'm saying. And it usually turns out to be true. So the main crux of the situation is you had a bunch of users that were saying, well, I don't want you to have access to my machine and what I'm printing because maybe I'm doing a business. Maybe I have clients that don't want that proprietary model being printed and being accessed by your servers. And, it's a thing. It is definitely a thing. And especially with intellectual property and people stealing models. I mean, is it possible that China could be involved in intellectual property infringements, copyright, all of that stuff? Yeah, it absolutely could. So, that's why people were like, I don't know if I want to do this, and they're really mad at Bambu, and so was I. George says, I'm from the government. I'm here to help. Yeah, that's a warning sign right there. But kind of the same thing. So when you have a company that lies, and then they say, well, the reason that we're doing this to have access to all your information, and we can access, is because safety and security, because we're getting a million hits on our servers. Then the problem isn't on my end as a user. It's on your end, on your server end. So you work on the security on your server end, and just make it so, Bambu could have just said, hey, we're seeing a bunch of hits and we really are concerned about your safety and security. So we're going to have this additional password or set a long, strong password so that way you're secure and so on and so forth. But no, they didn't go that route. With all that aside, then the other thing is that the Chinese government can request and get access to all of this information, and Bambu has to turn it over to the Chinese government. They absolutely have to. There is no, it's not like America where you'll have companies that say, well, I have this information. I'm not going to give it to the government because they don't have the right. And legally, they have no grounds to have this information, kind of like gun registration and gun stores and stuff like that. And I'll never give that information up and blah, blah, blah. Or kind of like lawyers and saying, hey, I have this confidential informant, my source, journalists, I'm not going to reveal the source. I'll go to jail before I reveal my source, and things like that. That's common in the United States, but in China, the Chinese government can say, no, you give it to us or you cease to be a company. Everybody kind of knows this. And Creality is a Chinese company. Most 3D printing companies are Chinese companies. So if the Chinese government says turn over all the log files and of everybody, and we're going to mine, and maybe they're involved in they want to see trends in 3D printing so they can produce less expensive parts or whatever it is, or just gather information. It's just, there's a lot of information that you can glean by having access, to your network, to your network. What else is plugged into your home network? Well, there's a bunch of other stuff, kind of reminiscent of TikTok, where it'll record even your keystrokes. And so, besides all the stuff that you look at and the stuff that you try to hide after you've looked at it, the Chinese government can have access to all of that. So that is a point of contention that was had. And so where does that leave us now? Because, I was really vocal on that, and I was like, but then I'm sitting next to a Creality K2 Plus printer. They could do the exact same thing. The Chinese government could say, hey, hand over all your files of everything and everyone, all of their home networks, their information of signing up with your service, email, and all this stuff. I mean, the amount of sensitive information that the Chinese government could get, whether it's Creality or Bambu or any other Chinese company that offers 3D printing, print services, whatever it is, scanners, the whole nine yards, those companies have to turn that over to the Chinese government, no questions asked. They will not stand up and say, no, I'm not going to do that. No, they're guaranteed they're going to do that. Matter of fact, it's kind of like in their laws. So where does that leave us? That's had me, doing some thinking, and it's like, the thing is that Creality didn't make a big deal. Okay, Creality, they had some problems with some of their machines, but they didn't outright say, hey, we're not going to transmit this information for your network, your machine, over to our servers. We swear, God's honest truth. And then it ends up that they did, like Bambu did. Creality hasn't done that. They're still a Chinese company, so I don't know. Maybe that's what made it more palatable. And they didn't lie. They didn't try to gaslight people into saying, we will never take such and such data. And then they did. And it's like, then they tried to say, it's just a bunch of fanatics. And then the whole, for your safety and security. I'm getting on a rant. I don't know. But for the normal person, the average person that just wants to 3D print, they don't care what the Chinese government or any government, they just want to print cosplay stuff. They want to do a helmet. They want to do benchies. They want to do their own models. They want to make their own little things, and they don't really care. And should you care? I don't know. For some people, I think if you're in the business of a print service and your clients are saying, hey, I don't want my model to be exposed or be on any type of network for whatever reason, intellectual property, they're hyper, you know, they're panicking about, hey, I don't want China to get a hold of my product because they'll start making it and, you know, offering it at cheaper prices on Temu or whatever, which has been done ad nauseum. Yeah, that is a viable concern. And then the other thing is that you have to get online and register to use the product. And the older Bambu systems, it was like, oh, well, just don't upgrade. But the thing is, they've made changes so every single new machine, and if you do the upgrade, you can't go back in time and just run it without connecting up to the network. So there's the question of, do you really own that property? If I own a camera or a phone or something, and I cannot use whatever it is, if I cannot use that electronic device without having to register it, do I really own it? You know, you have action cameras. You know, I've got Osmo action cameras and things like that. You've got video cameras, you know, all types of stuff. And if you don't register, that means that you can't access the features and actually use that item. Is that, do you really own it? Did you really buy it? If I buy something, I should be able to use it without having to register. I don't know. So there's the dilemma. George Valentine, hey, says, I'm glad that there are companies actually starting to make printers in the U.S. and it will take time, but it is a good thing. And in the meantime, it's nice to see Prusa starting building in the U.S. That is true. Prusa is really security oriented. They so you've got these two extremes. You've got Bambu, and then you've got Prusa, and then you're starting to get some U.S. companies that are starting to build printers. But still, China's the big boy on the block because of the resources. They can build stuff cheaper, faster, quicker, the whole 9 yards than we can in the United States. So United States prices are going to be a little bit more. And if they could get to that level, kind of like Prusa, then yeah, that would be a good thing. But when it comes to the hobbyists, when it comes to people that do printing and print service and print farms, and security is not a concern for them. You know, they're driving on, they have their 20, 30, 40, 100 printers going. They don't really care about if the Chinese government gets their information. They're going to keep printing out their adapters for vacuum cleaners and tools and batteries and whatever. I don't know. But it's definitely going to take time for the United States companies to get anywhere near where Bambu Labs is going, and as far as Prusa for that matter. So it's really good that Prusa is getting into the game as well. So, Zombie Hunter, yeah, hey, what's up, bro? We're talking about the some good stuff there. Hobby Knife, how to set pressure advance in the Crowley print for the K2 Plus, and then we've been kind of off topic and talking about Bambu with their P2S, and then some of the problems that Bambu has had with them lying about information that was not supposed to be transmitted in log files that actually was, and how they tried to gaslight people and for your safety and security. But then we kind of brought it, now I have a K2 Plus, which is from a Chinese company, which if the Chinese government said, hey, you need to give us all the information from all your users and all the logs and everything that they printed, Crowley has to say, okay, here you go with a smile on their face, as do all Chinese companies. So really, but then we went over the specs of the P2S, and it is really nice. So there's this battle going on inside me. As much as I love my Creality K2 Plus, that P2S with the 256 cube and all of the different advancements on that, especially of getting, you don't have to do a pressure advance test and other stuff. It's getting to the point of where it's like, wow, Bambu's looking good. Bambu, I mean, they do great prints and great machines. The other thing we're going to take a look at is the other one that is very tempting. If I consider getting another machine. Again, the P2S is somewhere around $700 some odd dollars. George pops in and says, I hate to leave, but I need to tend my smoker. I have pork butt and it's almost done. Oh, smoker. You're my friend. I don't eat much pork, but smoking? Ooh, yeah. I love that. All right. Well, hey, take care of that. I mean, smoked meat is important, so I totally understand. Take some pictures, and next time you show up, send them in an email, and we'll throw them up on a future live stream. So, yeah, now you got me hungry. Now I want smoked chicken or beef or brisket, or maybe I'll do that today. Yeah. So yeah, have a good one, George. Man, now I'm hungry. Zombie says Bambu really upped the standards for printing. That's for sure. Yeah, there's no arguing that at all. And I think the two top dogs are Bambu and Prusa. Prusa, they're not as well refined as Bambu, in my opinion. I think if you took, how Apple is, at the height of when Apple was good, instead of just pumping out, brand new colors and calling that an upgrade, or things that were upgraded that the average user is not going to see any significant differences. Being Apple is kind of like the epitome, the peak, the apex of what a company wants to be. And I think Bambu is the Apple of the 3D printing world. And I think Prusa, on the other hand, they do really good, but they're not on the same level as Bambu. I think they're a little bit behind. When you think about it, if you have a system with Bambu and their touch screens and the whole 9 yards, and then Prusa, you still have that little manual dial to go through the menus on stuff. Come on, seriously, we're still doing the manual knob rotating through menus on the machine, then pressing the knob to select. Come on, we need to. Of course, now we have the Core One and things like that. But Zombie says, I think Prusa is falling behind. Honestly, yeah, I think they're a little behind. I think they are, and they're catching up with the Core One. They're trying to do that. But yeah, like Zombie says, Bambu are pushing the limits. So they're getting to the point of where, any more advancements, you're not going to have to do, pretty much now you don't have to do any calibration with Bambu or even my K2 Plus. Even though we just went through and showing Guy Jonathan, who asked a question, how do I do the pressure advance test? How do I read it? And so on and so forth. And enter and edit the profiles, which we did that. Bambu, you don't really need to do that. And with the stock settings on the K2 Plus, it does fine for everything that I want it to do. So it's really, you don't need to do the calibration. You do the initial calibration, and whenever you do software, firmware upgrade and stuff like that, you run through the whole machine calibration thing again. But other than that, it's not like you have to do a temperature tower. It's not like you got to do a flow rate test. It's not like you got to do the pressure advance and the VFA test and this and that and so on and so forth. So it's getting to the point of where, Bambu is pushing the limits, and I don't know if they can go any higher. I think once they get the machine out that has multiple print heads, I think and with induction heating coils with like the Bondtech in their index system, I think that's gonna be the pinnacle, because there's not going to be any filament waste, and I think any advancements after that are not going to be enough for somebody to look at their old machine like the P2S or like the Creality K2 Plus, and if you get a multi-head system, anything after that, I don't think that would be enough to just kind of leave your other machine and just go get with another one. Prusa hasn't done anything really in the last 4 years to make people go, wow, but with the Bambu, every time they say something new, everyone sits up and takes notice. Yeah, and I think that's the nature of the beast of Bambu. They're the big dog, in the yard right now, and I don't think Prusa's got as big of marketing like Bambu does, so maybe that has something to do with it. Prusa. And what we'll do is we'll take a look at the Core 1. Now they got some different printers and everything, but with that, so you have the Core 1, and that's $1,200 for the Core 1. And you can get it as a kit at $19.50, so that's in stock. Let's just look at the assembled version, because we'll kind of compare this to the P2S. And 250 by 220 by 270, so that's a bigger build area, so that's nice. The price is a little pricey compared to the P2S, and this is just the assembled kit with no advanced camera. You know, if you throw the camera, that's another $40. So now you're up to $1,239, $1,240. And again, when we look at this, we got a screen on there, but we still got the knob, and now they got some touch. I think it's touch. They actually got some touch screen, but they still got the knob and the old stuff there. I just don't think the Core 1. I don't know. I think they're trying to catch up with the Core 1, and with that larger build plate area. The 250, 220 by 270, so 250 across, 220 deep, and 270 high. That's good. But price-wise, if you look at that, and that's not even with an AMS, that's with a camera on there, that's $1,239. Let's take a look at well, they don't even have a multi-material system. So, yeah. And like Zombie says, here it comes, boom. I can buy 2 Bambu P1Ps for that price. And there's the rub. Even if it was on the same level as far as technological advancements and improvements on the Core 1, the problem is the price. It's, you're looking at, with a machine that has multiple build plates, you've got a camera and stuff like that, you're talking $1,300, minimum $1,200, whereas the P2S comes in a combo and you're looking at like $750 maybe, 750 pounds. They don't have the US pricing. Yeah. And Zombie says, yeah, you can buy 2 Bambu P1Ps and still have change left over. I know. So really, I think in the battle between Prusa and Bambu, you have that high price, and that is an obstacle. China definitely has the advantage when it comes to their printers because they can build stuff so inexpensively. They have reduced labor costs and so on and so forth. So just based on that alone, but if we look at the technological advances, Bambu's ahead of Prusa, in my opinion. But even if Prusa was on the same level as Bambu, the pricing is still high. Core 1, $1,200, and if the P2S is like $750 or even $800, what are you going to go for? I mean, unless security is a huge concern and is an absolute must and it's high on your priority list, then yeah, maybe going with the Core 1 would be the way to go. But if you don't care about the security, you don't care if who's looking in on your printer and what you're printing, and I printed out a Labubu or Marvel helmet or whatever. If you don't care about that stuff, and it really comes down to the advancements, and if the advancements are the same, are you going to pay more or less? Most people are going to pay less. So yeah, it's and again, I think Bambu is going to come out with that multi-head system, and that's going to rock everybody to the core. That's going to blow the that's going to blow the Prusa XL out of the water. Because the XL is, and I thought about getting the XL, but look at that. That's almost $2,000. That's $2,000, and that's for one print head. That's for one extruder. Let's say if I want to do 2, that's another $500. So now that's 2,500. It's semi-assembled. It doesn't have an enclosure kit. Let's throw an enclosure kit on there, and now you're up to $3,000. And let's say you want to do the assembled. That's another 520. So you're looking at $3,500. I just that is so rough. Build area is 360 cubed. My Creality K2 Plus is 350 cubed, and what is the Creality? Let's see. Creality K2 Plus. What does that come out to be? This will be an interesting one. Boom. Let's take a look at this. Here's the Creality K2 Plus. Why is that available for your country or region? No, change store. I want the US. I want freedom prices. Okay, and now flagship series. K2 Pro, K2 Pro, K2 Plus. And how much does that cost? Boom, $1,000 just for the printer. And you're looking at the Prusa XL. And when the XL came out, there was problems with that as well. So, it's like, without the CFS, we're looking at $1,000. But with the combo, what does that come out to? At $1,300. Or 6 Bambu P1Ps. Let's take a look at printers. The P series, printers, P series, P1S. How much is the P1S? The P1S is $550. That's the P1S. And let's take a look at the P1P, $399, $400. Crazy stuff. Yeah. I mean, doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but $400 for a P1P, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. Seriously. But the P2S, the P1S, how much is that one? That one came out to $550. Zombie Hunter says $569 Australian. So, yeah. But that P2S, it's going to be around $700. They're thinking it's going to be around $700 or so in U.S. prices. So, but with all the features that they have on it, man, that is seriously tempting. But then you have the K2 Pro, the K2 Pro combo, which is basically $1,050. And that is coming into play. So that's 1,000. That's 300 cube build volume. So that's a little bit more. But just with the Pro itself, that's $850. I mean, I'd be selling some plasma to pick me up a K2 Pro. That's tempting as well. But in all honesty, where is it? P2S, that's going to be around $700, $800, I think. And then the K2 Pro. So the question is, if you had the choice of a K2 Pro or the Bambu P2S, which one would you pick? I don't know. I'm seriously thinking on the P2S. But then the build volume is 256 cube. But then with all the advancements in technology on the Bambu P2S, I don't know. It depends on how much the combo is. The P2 Pro combo is 1050. So yeah, if only the P2S had a slightly bigger build area. Zombie says P2S all day. But I understand why Bambu did that, because they probably have a bunch of stock of frames and all of that stuff for the P1S, and if they upgrade and just refresh it and do the P2S, you can use some of the old parts for the P1S for that, and you're not throwing money away. So I understand why they did that. But the K2 Pro is tempting. But the H2S, yeah, like Zombie says, he really wants the H2S. And that's $1,500 US for that. As we see there, H2S, 1,500. I couldn't imagine what that would be for here in Korea, because we would have the import tax, kind of like, you got to have import and VAT tax. Zombie says, Bambu is still way ahead of everyone else by a mile at the moment. Yeah. And that's honestly, I mean, part of me wants to get another Creality. Like if I get another K2 Plus, then at least for replacement and repair parts, I only have to get one, one type of replacement parts, and it'll work on both my machines. But with the H2S, with that large build area, and what is that? That's a 340 by 320 by 340. So 320, that's 12 inches. So 12, oh, that's 340. So that's 13, almost 13 and a half inches by 12 and a half-ish by 340. So, I mean, that's a good size build area on that H2S. Zombie says it's $18.99 for Australian. So that would probably, I'm not sure what that would be in Korean. I'll have to take a look at that. Let me see if I can find on Neighbor. Wonder if it's even for sale. Let's take a look at this. Bambu H2S. And boom, we end up seeing there, and we'll do Neighbor Pay. So you're looking at, that's the one I was looking at, because they're pretty much all going to be the same price, no matter what company you get it from. So it's not like you're going to get any better deal. Let's see. With that, so 1,690,000 won, and the exchange rate, we're going to divide that by 1420. That'll be 1,120. But I think, I'm not sure if I have to pay a VAT tax on that. I think I still have to pay VAT tax. So that's not, let's see, are based on search, depending on relevance, okay, blah, 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 whatever. But that might be services unavailable, and stuff like that. And that's kind of problematic, because you always pay more than what they do in the United States. But then again, did the stream end? No. No. No, still streaming. Oh, I think it's because I switched off the VPN to take a look at the website in Korea, because it doesn't like the shopping site that I use here in Korea doesn't like the VPN when I have that. So I think that's why it was maybe a little interruption. I'm sorry for that. My bad. But yeah, that'll end up being like what was that? About $1,200. But I think that's not including the VAT tax. But that's just for the H2S. The combo is another 300,000. So let me see what that would end up being. 1690. So it's basically 2 million won divided by 1420. So we're looking at about $1,400 still. That's a good deal. But I think there's still going to be, I still think there's going to be a VAT tax on that, because some of the stuff that I've ordered, you'll get the same thing. Here's the price, free shipping, blah, blah, blah. But then you have to pay the import tax separately. So that's bitten me in the ass a couple of times when I've ordered stuff online here in Korea. But yeah, that H2S. But do I get that? I mean, that's a chunk of change. I'd have to wait. It'd have to be a while before I get that. But then Bambu's coming out with their multi-head system, kind of like with, kind of like the Prusa XL with the multi-heads. But that's been kind of delayed from what I've seen. So should I just wait until then? And then when that comes out, hopefully that'll drive down the price of the H2S combo. But after that, I mean, what other advancements are you going to have in 3D printing? Yeah. Zombie says, can print helmets in one shot at the H2S. Yeah. And if I get into doing side gigs and doing a print service and printing out helmets or masks or stuff like that, yeah, it's nice to be able to do print and go and be done. And then, of course, if I do the cosplay armor, it would be nice to have two printers. So that way I could have one printer at least, or both of them, printing out cosplay armor, helmets, or whatever. Or have one printing out my stuff and then another one printing out, if I sell helmets or something like that eventually, do a print service. Yeah, so there's that. But the H2S is nice. Ooh, that would be nice. I'll have to keep an eye on that. So yeah, that might be worth saving my ducks, my nickels and dimes from the couch and pennies, and trying to. I wonder if I can sell plasma here in Korea and make some money. I don't know. I gotta look that up. That would be a good question. So that's what we got going on. Yeah, some fun stuff. Can I sell plasma in Korea? That's a question I'll have to look at. So, no, you cannot sell plasma in South Korea. Plasma is by donation only. Serious non-ruminated act through the Korean Red Cross, but the country's budget explicitly prohibits paid or compensated blood or plasma donations. Dang it. Those things I used to do in the United States when I was not retired and I was poor and I was trying to scrape together money. I can't do that here in Korea. Dang it. Oh well. Yeah, I remember getting like $40-$60 a pop back when I would donate plasma or sell plasma in the United States. So that was kind of a thing. Did that for a little bit. But yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so the P2S, that's tempting. The H2S is really tempting. And if price wasn't a consideration, I would definitely go with the H2S, kind of like with Zombie Hunter. I would definitely do that. And then you're set, I'm not really big into multicolored printing, so we'll see how that goes. George is back. He says the pork butt is beautiful. Oh, I bet it smells great too. How long did you smoke that for? That's my question. And did you baste it with anything? Did you marinate it? Did you do a dry rub in it? What? Tell us what you did, George. Make us all hungry. Yeah. And it's 9 o'clock in the morning, so I'm getting a little bit hungry. We talked over the things. We did the pressure advance on the K2 Plus. We talked about the free palette knife that we ended up making and printing in Creality or in Tinkercad and then printed it out on our K2 Plus so we can mix our paints and paint our cosplay items and whatever. Yeah, it is interesting. Zombie says, I don't have an AMS on my P1P. Yeah, I'm not into that multicolored printing stuff, but I guess it would be nice. I mean, I got that with a K2 Plus on the combo, but if you get the P2S or the H2S, you're going to get the combo. So, yeah, you could do up to 4 colors on the combo, the basic combo, and then you could end up, adding more if really that was your thing to do, multicolor prints, which is a possibility. Talking about, George says, I had it dry rubbed and sitting in the fridge for 2 days before smoking it. Ooh, yes. George says, I use an ice cream stick when I mix paints. Yeah, mixing paints wasn't a big deal with like the Army Painter paints and stuff like that. But when I got those new paints, the Art Deco paints, so like you see on that left-hand side, that box there, that stuff is really, really thick. And it mixes well, but the palette knife would definitely, it is the way to go. And I think that little raised, maybe I'm getting to be a painting snob, but I think this would be cool. But the other previous paints, with the Army Painter Mega Set, their airbrush set, the 2.0 paints and stuff like that, if you need to thin those out, you just add some water, mix it with the brush, and you're good to go. But with the Art Deco paints, it is really thick. It's really thick. And so you definitely need something more than an ice cream stick. I mean, it could work, but because that would be flat. I guess that'd work. So, but this is my fun stick. Feels good in my hand. So, anyway, so that's what we got going on. I think what we're going to end up doing is, because I need food and I'm getting hangry now, my stomach's starting like hurting. Need to get some food in there, and the coffee's not doing it any justice. So with that, we're going to close out this video. George has got some pork butt going on, so that makes me even more hungry. George is, or Zombie is talking about the H2S and the P2S, and that's very tempting. And so all of that is coming into play. And yeah, just some fun stuff. Fun sticks sounds wrong. I don't know. Maybe I should put a thing on here that says fun stick, emboss that in there. Oh no, George is tempting me even more. He says applewood chunks with little mesquite chunks for extra smoke. Seriously, why would you tell me that? Now I really want smoked meat. And there are a couple places here in Korea. Brisket's really good. I'm not a big fan of pork. I eat a little bit of pork, but try not to, because it just kind of bothers my stomach if I eat a lot of it. So usually I stick with beef or brisket, chicken, stuff like that. But I have been known to do some pork. But man, yeah, applewood, mesquite, ooh, dry rubbed. Put it in the fridge for a couple days. Ooh, oh yes. Yeah. We'll just leave it at that. So anyway, we'll finish that up. Again, the obligatory, please like the video. That would really help with the algorithm and stuff. And we're going to continue on. We'll do more on, I've got some videos of painting the Galactic Army helmet that we see there. So we're going to continue the series on that. And then if I get some other questions from people or whatever, some other rants that come along the way, we'll be doing live streams on that. But yeah, I think we're going to close this out. So thank you guys, Zombie Hunter, George, and the other people that end up watching this. I appreciate it. And yeah, have a good one. Enjoy that. I'm going to get some smoked. I'm going to get some smoked meat today. There's all there is to it. Zombie Hunter says, see you, Steve and George. Yeah, see you as well, George. Have a good one. And we'll close out this video. George says, I'll catch you later. And that's what'll happen. Peace. Good stuff. See you guys. Thank you.